Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Big Apple Banter on this Sunday evening over here in Arizona. How you doing today, Frank?
I'm doing pretty good. Enjoying my Sunday with my wife. Had a pretty chill day. Went out with the pup.
Oh, that sounds pretty relaxed.
Yeah,
Um,
trying to bear the cold weather over here. About to get a nor'easter in New York.
for real, I'm jealous.
I'm not. I'd
Not.
rather be where you are.
Yeah, I'm hoping next weekend to go up north and maybe go snowboarding, but I can always come back here and enjoy 70 degrees and sunny. So
That's the best of both worlds. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get into myself in the future. But until
for
then,
real.
get into
I
some
mean,
sports news.
that's the situation you could say Matt Stafford is in now. He went out of the freezing cold in Michigan and now into beautiful LA yesterday.
Yeah, I don't blame him. And I also heard some reports that he even told the team trade me anywhere but New England.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Screw Bill Belichick.
But
That
yeah, good,
scumbag.
good for him. It was pretty out of nowhere trade. So
Yeah, it came really premature. I mean, it happened before January even ended, before the even Super Bowl. So that was very escalated and expedited. So it ended up being a shocking deal. And in the deal, the Rams ended up acquiring Matthew Stafford. In return, they give up Jared Goff amongst two future first round picks, I believe.
yeah, yeah, they give up not this year's, I believe, next
Yeah,
year's. Uh,
2022 and 2023.
yeah,
Yeah, because I think this year they gave up already to Jacksonville for Jalen Ramsey.
the Jalen Ramsey trade.
So yeah, that'll be now dating back to 2016, 7 years in a row that the Los Angeles Rams will not occupy their first round pick.
Yeah, that's pretty mind blowing. And obviously they made some pretty impactful trades, bringing in Jalen Ramsey on the defensive end. Of course, they also brought in Brandon Cooks in 1 year, and then they traded him out. Later on, but just it just goes to show, the GM and I guess even the owner in hand, the GM actually would just say they don't really know what they're doing. They're just throwing first round picks. You're not even drafting those guys. So when you're throwing a first round pick or even two first round picks for even, I think they traded two first round picks for Jalen Ramsey. I'm pretty sure, right? Or just one.
I'm not. I think it was at least two. I
I'm
don't know
pretty
the
sure it was two
exact
because
details.
I'm pretty sure Minka Fitzpatrick from the Dolphins got traded to the Steelers for two. I think so.
My, yeah, my viewpoint on that is probably because the market they play in LA. The other two sports in that town are just won the championship this year. So they don't want to be, the number one sport in the country, which is football, but also be the
And they were
third
just
team
there
in
2 years
town.
ago,
Yeah, they were in it, but they didn't win.
3 years
So
ago.
they didn't get the job done. So you know what? To them, they're not trying to rebuild. Those first round picks aren't really. They're not trying to build a team through the draft right now. They're trying to get over that hump and get a Super Bowl championship one. So
Yeah.
giving away the first round picks in my eyes isn't a big deal when you can acquire a former first overall pick from 2009, Matt Stafford, who has just been wasting away his career in Detroit.
Yeah, that guy, he's been a proven talent, since he's come into the league. Obviously, when he first came to the league, he had some shoulder problems. He got hurt his first couple of years, but ever since then, the dude's been a reliable quarterback. He's good for 4,000 yards, roughly about at least 25 touchdowns. Early in his career, it was kind of a little bit of a turnover machine with the interceptions, but over his last 5 years, he's had roughly around 10 or so. Roughly 10, a little bit over, maybe slightly one under. And that's not so bad coming from a guy who throws the ball probably around like 500 to 600 times a year.
And also considering over those last couple of years, he's lost his best weapon he had to begin his career in Calvin Johnson.
Yeah.
So he doesn't even have that type of wide receiver talent anymore. He has some slot guys like Golden Tate and they have Eric Ebron, the tight end over there. So it's
Jones.
not, yeah, not special talent over there like Calvin Johnson, but slot guys, kind of like a New England S type of receiving core.
Yeah.
And he got the job done. I mean, overall, the team, the franchise hasn't been successful. I mean, they just got rid of Matt Patricia, and before that, they had Jim Caldwell and
The team did
many.
better under Caldwell than they have done under Patricia.
They did, and you know what? That's been the MO up until the last couple of years with New England, Bill Belichick coaching disciples. So until Joe Judge and Mike Vrabel and guys like that came around. So You know what? Detroit hasn't set him up, and you know what? He gave him everything he could. He was there over a decade, so it's not like he wanted out after a couple of years, like say Deshaun Watson or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, no, he stuck with it, and I give him props for that. And it's not he never complained. He was a good old boy for the Lions. He did everything. He put his heart and soul into the Lions, and he showed it over the years. He was dedicated to the team, and but I guess it was a mutual agreement. He wanted out, and they probably want to start fresh too. They're having a new head coach come in, so it only makes sense that now they're probably going to be interested in drafting a quarterback this year. They hold the number 7 pick. Could they move up and want to take Justin Fields or Zach Wilson at 2? They could be potential trade partners with the Jets, and that's only good news for the Jets because obviously they might want to get into the Watson thing, but maybe that could also drive the price up of the number 2 pick if that doesn't come around. But for Matthew Stafford going to LA, they have a solid defense, probably a top 5 defense in the NFL. He's got some decent weapons around him at wide receiver. So
Yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what the Lions do with Jared Goff, though. Are they just going to come outright and cut him? Or are they going to play him and draft a quarterback and let him sit? I mean, it's interesting to see what happens there.
yeah,
He's owed a lot of money.
he is owed a lot of money, but who knows? Maybe they trade a first round pick that they just acquired and trade Goff away with that. That could be something they look to do.
Could be. I mean,
something like what happened with Brock Osweiler. If they don't want to hold on to the money.
Yeah, top of my head, I would think a team like maybe the Colts or even New England. But then again, do they want to have a quarterback that's been kind of somewhat mediocre under their books for that long?
Obviously, that contract is not attractive at all. But if some team thinks that they could figure him out, they might do it. It's probably unlikely. You're probably right. It's probably highly unlikely. But then again, they could still draft a quarterback at 7. Maybe they stand pat or they don't, and they have him sit behind Goff for a couple of years, and maybe then after that they could cut him after maybe the money is all all the money they vote him is paid. So
yeah, and it helps Goff that at least if he does actually play it down from the Lions, it'll be in a dome. Because even when he's back in college, he went to school at Cal, and he's a warm weather quarterback similar to Sam Darnold. Usually those warm weather, SoCal or Cal or any of those type of warm weather areas don't translate well in the Northeast or any type of cold temperature franchise from history. So it's going to be interesting what they do. I mean, yeah, I think overall it's just a way to get rid of them. And yeah, there's many potential opportunities now the Lions can go, whether trading up or, restocking their cupboard on all over the team and building an overall good team. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do now.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting because even, I saw a tweet from Bill Barnwell because, with Goff and Wentz, having signed these long-term contracts, it's going to be interesting to see what teams are going to have to be cautious now when their quarterback is up for a new contract. Even Lamar Jackson, so that's going to be the next big one. Will they sign him long-term, the Ravens? Would they sign him long-term? And then after a couple of years, he could turn out to be another Goff Wentz.
It could be. It could be. Now, a lot of people are saying this trade, it's like, wow, okay, so if they give up that much for Stafford, how much is Watson going to get or the Texans going to get for Watson in return?
Yeah, and supposedly, I saw John McCain, he tweeted, said that that's really going to have no effect on what the Texans are going to want. And still, they're right now, the asking price supposedly is 2 first-rounders, 2 twos, and 2 defensive players. That's quite a lot.
You're not kidding.
So that's basically saying the number 2, Seattle's pick next year or our pick next year, or even probably both, maybe, because then if you give them 3 first-rounders, then maybe they don't need another defensive player, or if they say Quentin Williams or nothing, then I don't know. I don't think you could do that.
No, they can't bleed the team of draft capital and quality young assets on their team to trade for a quarterback who then is going to be in a similar situation as he was in Houston with no, top draft picks or any type of young talent on the team. So it'd kind of be a moot point at that
Yeah,
point.
but
So
the draft picks are one thing, but getting rid of another player that you've used a
yeah,
top pick on, like you can't do that. Like that's just where I draw the line on that. But if you trade the number two, the 23rd pick, and both of our picks next year, you're essentially trading Jamal Adams and just the franchise's two first round picks. The number two and whatever our pick is next year. So everybody's freaking out like, oh, I don't want to do this trade because I'm getting rid of 4 first round draft picks and that's just franchise malpractice and those picks could turn into everything. But then again, I brought up this argument. I've heard this argument. I'm going to bring it up here. So the Bills traded away the 10th overall pick and they traded it to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs went on to draft Patrick Mahomes, but the Bills wound up drafting 3 players with those draft picks that they got: Josh Allen, Tre'Davious White, and I'm pretty sure another defensive player. I can't remember his name, but they hit on all 3 of those picks. Not something hard to do, but they hit. But would you rather have Patrick Mahomes or 3 solid players that you could still build your franchise around? Looking at it now, I think you'd rather have Patrick Mahomes than a stud quarterback, not at the talents and level of Patrick Mahomes, but still a guy who's showing some promise, a lot of progression from year 1, from year 2 to now year 3. He brought them to the AFC Championship game. He still has a lot of work to do, Josh Allen, but he still looks like he could be a top 10 quarterback in the game. They had a stud defensive player, Tre'Davious White, probably a top 5 cornerback in the game. But I don't know what Patrick Mahomes or building blocks to build your franchise. But just think, if you hit on that one pick, I mean, you hit on all 3. But if you hit the lottery, it's the jackpot. You hit the jackpot on Patrick Mahomes, then you don't even really have to worry about those guys because ultimately that player just raises the I don't even know what to call it, but he just raised the competitiveness for the team basically.
no, I hear what you're saying. It's just I know time is on his side, right? So Deshaun Watson's 25 years old. He's under contract, so you don't have to worry about giving him another payday in the next several years. Okay, that's a good sign. You have a new coach. You have still plenty of draft picks under Joe Douglas. You have a young left tackle that you think you hit on going into last year's draft. You might have a good young wide receiver in Denzel Mims that you picked up in the second round. And you still have a ton of cap space. I mean, you have Allen Robinson out there. You have
Juju, Kenny Galladay.
Yeah, there's plenty of weapons you could sign. But then if you're doing that, you're kind of saying Jets are in like win now mode. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way because he's 25, right? So they could, if they wanted to, build
Either
it
way,
slowly.
it's still just building blocks. And if you still make that trade for Watson, everybody's going to be like, oh, it's just the same old Jets, yada, yada, yada. But ultimately, once Watson lands in New York, he's the best player in franchise history from that moment. And anyway, it's going to be an attractive landing spot for other players. So if you're Juju or if you're Allen Robinson or if you're Kenny Galladay, you're going to want to head to New York and want to play with Deshaun Watson and catching balls from him. So it kind of just it makes the Jets a whole, a lot more attractive. And I'm sure he knows that.
It does, but it also puts more pressure on the general manager to hit on those mid-round picks now. Because if he doesn't, then he's going to be in the same spot and he's going to be unhappy in a couple of years, and then he might want out again. But then that'll show more on his character than the Texans and the Jets if he wants out again. But that's a concern, because if he's all upset about this team when he just signed the contract less than 2 years ago and now he wants out.
I mean, that's probably going to be like the ultimate factor too. He is coming off a 4-12 record with the Texans. So what if he comes to the Jets and he ends up doing the same thing? Like, what does that show? What if he still puts up great numbers, but he still has a 5-10, 4-12, 6-10 record?
Exactly my point. And then he might want out again. He's like, this team can't get it done. They don't have any assets here, especially if you give away your young talent like Quinn Williams in the deal.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Like and I know you can still, use those picks as building blocks, but I don't know. You're getting a commodity. Teams have traded 3 first round picks for just a number one or a number two pick for an unknown commodity, and now you're just going to trade 3 of those picks, maybe for unknown. I think it's just a no brainer, in my opinion. Especially when I'm going to keep reiterating this. You're trading essentially Jamal Adams and
mhm.
the team's first 2 round picks for for Deshaun Watson. You
And
might
if you want to
have
look
to
at
throw in a defensive player to sweeten the deal, or maybe just another mid-round pick to sweeten the deal. But I say you got to do it.
And if you want to strengthen your position on that, I mean, you look at 2012 when the Redskins at the time they traded first round picks and 3 second round picks for the second pick with the Rams to take RG3. Now at the time he wasn't even a proven commodity, and he was very successful in his rookie year. It looks like he could have been better than Andrew Luck,
Yeah,
but
he
then he
won.
got hurt
He
and his
won
career
the
went
AFC
south.
Rookie this year. Yeah, he won the award, and then he had that ACL, and then he was never the same.
Now that team was lucky at that point because also in that same draft in the third or fourth round they drafted Kirk Cousins, who
Yeah,
then ended up taking over as a starter.
yeah. That just goes to show also that you could also find a gem of a
Yeah.
quarterback in the third, fourth, even second round. So and that's also a route that I'd rather see the Jets go. You know,
Well, if you want to do that, then why not just keep Sam Darnold?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. If you're not trading for Watson, if the price is just extraordinary, they better just stick with Sam Darnold and trade that number two pick down and acquire more picks. That I mean, obviously that's just a no brain move to do. If you're not trading the number two for Watson, you better trade that pick down. It just makes the most sense.
Yeah, but I guess I just I don't know if the Lions are gonna. I don't know if any of these teams really love these quarterbacks, Zach Wilson and Justin Fields. I don't see them as that type of caliber quarterbacks. I know there's teams that always want to overdraft the quarterback every year. It happens. But what team out there do you think actually would want those guys?
All right, let me hold on. Let me bring up the NFL draft order really quick.
Okay.
2 seconds. All right, so you have Miami at 3. They're probably going to stick at 3 or maybe trade the pick. You have Atlanta at 4. You have Cincinnati at 5. So they're good. You have Philly at 6. They're good. 7 with the Lions, possibly. Even though they have Goff now, possibly. Carolina at 8. They could look up for a quarterback, even though they've also been involved in the Watson rumors. They're trying to pursue him. And then you have Denver at 9 and San Francisco at 12. So those are the only teams probably within the top 12 that could move up. Probably the most likely could be Carolina or Denver. Denver has Drew Lock right now. I don't think they're sold on him. Carolina, I guess they signed Bridgewater to a 1 year, so he's a free agent. So they could be in the market for a quarterback. Like I just said, they're in pursuit of Watson. But if they don't land him, they're going to have some secondary options to look at, maybe drafting a quarterback. Yeah, but outside that, 4, 5, and 6, Atlanta, Cincy, and Philly, they're set. They're set with quarterbacks, unless Atlanta wants to draft one and have him sit behind Matt Ryan for a year or two.
So what are we not seeing then? The public sees the Jets. I mean, other than the Jets being a sideshow for the last decade plus, they see the Jets as the destination because of the draft capital, and it just seems like a no-brainer, right, to everyone else.
See, that's the
But
thing too. We might, outside of, I'll just hold your thought because outside of, being having the Jets having the most draft capital, does Watson even really want to come here? Because there have been one report came out saying the Jets were the destination number 1, and Miami's destination number 2, and then other reports other days out have come out saying that that's not necessarily true. But obviously, the Jets make the most logical sense because we can offer them most draft capital. But at the end, Adam Schefter has come out and maybe even just
Yeah.
spoke out, out of terms and saying that, who knows, maybe the Ravens could check in and swap Lamar for Watson. So because it's going to be hard to replace talent like Deshaun Watson. You might, like I said, picks are nice and everything, but you have to hit on them. So they might look to trade Watson for just known commodities, and which might not be a bad idea either. So if they could look to trade him, it might be for who knows, maybe like a player like a Lamar Jackson or somebody, a quarterback that might be look to that would want to get traded or so something like that. That's something we could see. And an unorthodox trade where it's not draft picks, but high elite level players.
Yeah, I just find it hard to believe, like we said that, and then Adam Schefter's going on live TV and saying, "Don't get your hopes up, Jet fans." So that's why I just don't understand what I'm missing, because that makes me believe that JD just doesn't want to trade away the picks at the end of the day, because
I
no
guess
one else can compete.
I guess maybe he's seen what what's going on. Like maybe he doesn't want to bring that into the locker room either. Maybe that's it. Because this player's playing on the like you just said. Maybe Watson pulls this with us in a couple years because
But
things
that's
are
more on
going
him
that
then.
way.
That's on him then, not the Texans. You can't look at the Texans or Jets then if he does it twice before he's 30 in the
No,
NFL.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Maybe Joe Douglas doesn't want to get his hands dirty with all that stuff. Probably doesn't want to deal with Watson, and maybe he thinks he's a headache, and he doesn't like that he's pulling this stuff.
Yeah. But it's the trend. People see other players in other sports do this and get their way, so they want to do the same thing.
And that's the crazy thing too, because he just signed a contract, right? His
Mm-hmm.
contract is going to start the next upcoming season. So basically, he's got his signing bonus from the Texans. Now he wants to be traded. So if I'm the Texans, I would want that signing bonus money back, right?
That's not going to happen, but yeah.
Obviously, it's not going to happen, but it's crazy because players have no trade clauses. So don't you think teams might start wising up and maybe start putting in like clauses for certain demands where like if you demand this, then like your signing bonus gets I know contracts are already hard because they're not fully guaranteed and players probably wouldn't agree to that,
No,
but
of
I
course
mean
not.
it's it's a stipulation that teams might have to start making because things like this might get out of hand, especially if he succeeds and gets his way and goes to a team where he wants to go. That's going to set a precedent.
It already kind of has. This is the new thing in sports. That it just seems like it's inevitable at this point. Anytime things aren't going your way, you don't want to put in the work and get it turned around. You
But
just want to get out
usually
of
in the
there.
NFL though is because of money. Lev Bell sit out because of money. Zeke was trying to sit out because of money. Dalvin Cook was going to sit out because of money. You
And look
know,
how big of a disaster that was with Le'Veon Bell. I mean, that's a good
yeah, no,
point.
I know. But see, like Deshaun Watson's not sitting out because of money. He's sitting out because of his front office and former coach Bill O'Brien made incompetent moves, and that's
He
why he wants
did.
out.
He did. But then you look at it now, it's like, okay, if you didn't like Bill O'Brien, you should have never signed the extension to begin with. Now Bill O'Brien's gone, and you still want out. So there's something else going on that we don't know.
Yeah,
It
I
doesn't
guess
add
so.
up.
He just, the other day he removed everything off his IG. He removed
There's something
everything.
else going on we don't know about. That's the only thing I can come up with. It has
Yeah,
to be
dude.
something
I
to do with
don't.
the owner or something.
Yeah, I mean, like, and obviously, there are a lot of Jets fans saying that they don't want to give up the picks for the quarterback, and who knows if there is something else out there, who knows when it's going to come out. But like I said, I'm going to keep reiterating it. It's you're essentially trading Jamal Adams and whatever picks you want to give up, and if you don't want to give up, maybe the Texans would also take a 23 first round pick. A year away, so maybe it's like a pick, no pick, and then pick. From year to year, so they skip a year. So the
If they
Jets,
would do that, I would do that in a heartbeat if I were the Jets. Because you don't want to give up your assets the next upcoming years, because this is the key years for
or
Joe
it's kind
Douglas
of
to
like
really
something that the NBA does. Maybe they do something like that where they do like every other year. First round draft picks too, because that could also, work out for the Texans' favor too. Because who knows what the Jets might be like in a few years? Kind of like what they just did with Miami. And Miami lucked out getting number 3 because you never would have thought the Texans would have been 4-12 with Deshaun Watson as their quarterback.
Yeah, and he put up all those numbers without his best weapon, then who they just traded away to Arizona the year before, and DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, and I don't. You're getting a known. You're getting a known commodity.
You
Who's
are,
25 years
you
old,
are.
under contract for 6 years. It makes all the sense in the world. It really does. And you have cap space. His cap hit for this season. If we were to
It's
trade
like
him,
11.
yeah, it's like
Right?
10.5 million cap hit, and then after that, it's going to be around 20.
30, $40 million, I think.
No,
30
I
something
think it's
million.
I think it's around. Well, maybe the cap hits like that, but I know his annual average value is like around 28 million or something like that, or 29 million.
Okay. Well, also let's just look at it this way. Deshaun Watson came onto the scene in 2017, right? He was playing well in his rookie year. Boom, he tore his ACL. Then he was out the whole remainder of the season. Then he came back 2018. Did they go to the postseason, if I remember correctly? I know it's last year they did in 2019. They ended up beating the Bills and then losing to the eventual Super Bowl champions by blowing a 24-0 lead. But I think he did go to a wild card that year, and I think they lost because that was Sam Darnold's rookie year. But I'm not 100% on that. But anyway, yeah, he hasn't done anything spectacular since he's been in the league from that standpoint when it comes to winning. And he had somewhat talented teams. I'm not going to say the Texans are a well-run organization because we all know that's not true. But he had those weapons on offense. He had a solid defensive line. He has J.J. Watt. He had Jadeveon Clowney.
Only thing, he had a lousy offensive line, but he had he had DeAndre Hopkins for a little bit outside of last season. Will Fuller, he's a solid wideout. When healthy.
They had Lamar Miller too.
Yeah, they had decent. Well. They had decent backs too. They've had decent backs.
And he eventually lost. I mean, I know it's somewhat unfair to say.
I mean, blowing it to 24-0 lead is not his fault. That's the defense.
Defense doesn't help, but he also didn't put up a lot of points after that. And the next couple of drives after that, he went 3-and-out, and he let them climb back into the game. So, but you know what? That's his second playoff appearance. They actually got a win that year, so that's one thing or another. I mean, I'm not trying to be unfair on the guy. I'm just looking at devil's advocate and looking at, the negatives on this guy because everyone just is talking up how he's a top 5 quarterback in this league.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we all know that. We all know his talents and everything. It's just maybe he's just what if he doesn't want to come here too? Because obviously if the Texans want to make a trade, the Jets are an ideal landing spot because of all the draft capital. But what if he nulls the trade? What if he vetoes it because he doesn't want to come here?
Well, then you have your answer. But people are showing the pictures of him on the Empire State Building with his brother next to him by his side wearing a Jet shirt. His brother's a big Jet fan. So they're connecting the dots and the draft capital and everything. That's why I'm saying Jets. It's a no-brainer. They're the place to be for Deshaun Watson.
And he hasn't publicly made any statements at all.
No, but there was a report that he finally requested a trade at least. And he's not going to publicly say, I only want this team. Because if he does that, then from his standpoint, he should do that. Because then if he says, okay, I only want to go to the Jets, so that's the only team I'm willing to waive my no trade clause, so trade me to the Jets. Then that helps the Jets, his new team, try to keep some of his picks because they have no leverage at that point.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. If he vocalizes himself and says like where he wants to go, then it just makes it plain and
But
simple.
they almost never do that because you know how athletes are. They like to be wined and dined and courted. They want to feel the love from all these teams. Come on, come play for us. We love you. This, that, and the other.
Yeah, but that's being a free agent, not being locked up and.
In his mind, he is a free agent because he feels he's played his last down.
Doesn't work like that though.
I know, but
And
like I said,
you just play hardball and just you're not playing. I'll fine you.
yeah, how'd that work out for the Jets? Joe Douglas said we have no intentions of trading Jamal Adams. He was traded before the season started. So they always say that, but it seems at the end of the day that never actually sticks. They always end up trading the player because they don't want a disgruntled leader in that locker room. He's the leader of the team. He's the quarterback.
Yeah, and supposedly, the GM Nick Caserio's come out and says we have no intentions, we have no desire to trade Watson. The head
Of
coach,
course.
Khalid's come out to say I've only took this job because I Deshaun Watson was my quarterback. So who knows what the hell's going on over there in Houston land.
Yeah, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and they don't want to have to trade him. Obviously, you don't want to trade a guy at that caliber, but you might have to.
Yeah, you would never want to trade a guy like that, and it sucks to be a fan of Houston because you're just seeing like all your players get traded. Hopkins.
I have no sympathy for them.
It's just yeah, I know, I get you. We're not gonna get to the Astros now. I get you.
But
I just there's no way their relationship is gonna get repaired in Houston. It's obviously oblivious that they don't know that Watson wants no part of being their quarterback. So
yeah, and they just hired this coach who I never heard of him before
nobody's heard of him.
And you think Deshaun Watson, he was on his list of candidates? I don't think so. They didn't even interview Eric Bieniemy. In fact, no one interviewed or even considered strongly hiring him, even though he's the candidate every year, saying, oh, is Eric Bieniemy going to get a job this year? He's working under Andy Reid. He has a successful offense. But people, I think, look at that and say, you know what? He is under Andy Reid. He's a glorified clipboard holder, and he has a great quarterback and one-in-a-generation type of player. So yeah, I don't know if that guy's ever getting a job at this point.
Yeah, he's probably nice. He's probably better off just. I mean, why also? I mean, yeah, I guess it's nice, to be the head coach of a team also, but why would you want to leave the success of an organization too? Like, I don't want to be
everyone wants to be the man. It's all an ego thing. Everyone wants to be the head guy.
Yeah, I get it, but who knows? If I'm a part of a potential dynasty, I think I'd want to stick around.
Yeah, but not if you feel like you're going to get no credit. They're going to prop up Reed and Mahomes. Bieniemy's going to be an afterthought. No one's going to mention that guy.
Yeah. I guess you could. That's going to be for anybody, though. Whoever goes the fastest.
Of course.
Mahomes is just otherworldly.
Of course. But anyway, he was on Watson's choice. Top candidate. Him and Robert Saleh, who's now the coach of the New York Jets.
Yeah, so it could be a potential. The only thing I could think of is just like, why Watson would have want to come to the Jets just because the dysfunction that the organization of the Jets has been in over the last few years, probably last decade. But now that there's a new coach, a new regime, a new system in place, and like I said, once he gets into New York, if he gets traded here, he instantly becomes the biggest name to ever play for the Jets, and he ultimately attracts any free agent you want to bring in.
Yeah, they need to change the perception around the Jets as a whole. So just from that standpoint, it would be an ideal move to trade for him, no doubt.
I mean, the only thing I could see maybe if he really doesn't want to play in New York because of the weather, I don't know if that has any, factor in his decision. But other than that, like, there's no better place than New York to make a name for yourself and brand yourself.
And maybe it's because he realizes it's not actually New York. Maybe he realizes he's going to be actually living in New Jersey, going to the facility in Florham Park in New Jersey. Yeah, he can go into the city, but he will be living in Jersey, not New York. I don't know if that plays anything into it. That's all semantics, but I don't know.
I mean, at the end of the day, New York's in your backyard.
It is. You can see it from where they're at.
It's cheaper. It's cheaper to live in Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably they have the stadium there. It's probably cheaper to have the stadium there than New York.
Definitely. That's definitely one of the main reasons.
But yeah, it's just the Jets and Watson. The dots all connect. It really just makes sense. But
that's what scares me because it's too obvious. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen.
Where the hell could he go? It's just any other team that outside of Miami.
That's it, Miami.
every other team is going to have to mortgage their future. Literally, they're going to have to give up uh, two ones, two twos, and but if those teams don't care, which I guess they don't, I don't know. Maybe the Saints make a move.
Well, look at a team like the Bears. The Bears have a GM and coach who are desperate. They're clinging on by 1 year at a time at this point between Ryan Pace
So
and
not only
Matt Nagy.
are they going to trade picks to
Yeah.
trade up for the number 2 pick to trade Trubisky, so now they're
Yep.
going to trade other draft picks to get a quarterback they passed on to trade up for Trubisky.
He's going to try to correct his mistake by only setting back the franchise with less draft picks, but he's hoping he hits because he thinks he has a Super Bowl caliber team, with Khalil Mack. They do.
The defense is Super Bowl caliber, but now that they're losing A-Rob, obviously the quarterback is dismal. So that's a non-factor there. But if they bring in Watson, then maybe Al Robinson. I'm pretty sure A-Rob re-ups, and maybe they bring in somebody else, or maybe they draft somebody in the middle rounds.
That's why I think the Bears, though, are a dark horse in this because they reek of desperation, those guys. They want to keep their job. So when you reek of desperation, you're going to do some desperate things by trading away maybe potentially the next 5 years of first-round picks. Yeah. Who knows?
I could potentially see Carolina doing something like that, too. Because they got
that's harder to believe.
And they just locked up Christian McCaffrey. So the reason why is because they want to, get that guy into the playoffs and give him a chance to win.
They did, but they also just signed a coach to a very long-term contract. And what's his name?
Matt Rule.
Matt Rule. Thank you. So he still has a lot of time on that job. He's not worried about going anywhere. Similar situation with John Gruden in Las Vegas. He has plenty of time to mold his team and his image. That's why they still have been playing Derek Carr all this time. Potentially they might be in the market for a quarterback, whether it's in free agency or in the draft. So I don't know. You just haven't been hearing things about the Jets the last few days. And you think now that Stafford just got traded, you would think that Watson being traded is potentially happening in the next week or so.
Yeah, and they actually weren't even thinking if a deal would happen. They said potentially before Super Bowl or right around Super Bowl time you would hear something, and boom, that's happened. Late yesterday?
Yeah, it happened around 8:30 my time. It happened. So
I had almost 24 hours ago that trade happened. So we're just in the middle of breaking that down, and it's just with the Lions trading Stafford to the Rams, receiving Jared Goff, a couple first-round picks, and a third-round pick. What are the Jets going to do for Watson? What is Watson worth? Apparently 2 first, 2 twos, and 2 defensive players. The Jets have the picks to make up for the defensive players, but would they potentially want Quinn Williams? You and I are both saying no, and rightfully so. And it's just going to be hopefully more news comes out over the next few days so we could update. We could give everybody an update on what the hell we think the Jets should do here.
They're going to have to do something. I think time's ticking now just because of that move. So something's going to happen real quick, in my opinion. Something's going to happen real soon.
If something happens soon, it would be or at least some news, some kind of news. As a Jets fan, I'm getting anxious.
Yeah, me too. We all are. It's a lot of excitement, and we just don't want to be let down. It's like we have this low-hanging fruit, essentially, it seems, at least to us, because it seems like it's inevitable this is going to happen. So we're really anxious, and hopefully something comes out real soon so we can put our nerves to rest, and we can update everyone else on that and dissect it. So
yeah, I mean, the GM is never gonna, like Joe Douglas. I feel like he's never gonna just come. He's not gonna come straight out and say like, we're interested in Watson. So it's just gonna happen out of nowhere. But he's probably not even gonna comment either and say like, yeah, I'd rather hold on to the draft picks and anything like that.
He can't because you know what? If you come out and say something, first off, it gives away all your leverage, but also you want to keep those cards close to the vest and prevent, say, your quarterback at this moment, Sam Darnold, if you come out and say something like, yeah, we're interested in looking for him, how does that make that guy feel if you go ahead and miss out on Watson? Now you're stuck with a quarterback who no one believes in.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that everybody does. Everybody has to like sugarcoat everything. So even like when Robert Saleh got introduced, at his press conference, he was asked about Sam Darnold, and he pretty much mushed over.
Yeah,
Sam,
he gave it fluff.
he loves his arm talent and yada yada yada. He has a lot of potential. I see a lot in him, and that's just you have to do that. That's just you can't not criticize the QB because you're just not doing yourself any due diligence there.
No, it's just coach speak. You're never going to talk poorly, at least to the media, about a player, whether it's yours or someone else. But behind closed doors is when you can rip a player and try to help them improve that way. But that's just common with coaches, especially when you haven't even seen the guy yet. You're new to the building, so you're not going to start a beef, so to speak.
Dude, all I know is that if the Jets don't get Watson, I hope Joe has a plan to do something with that number 2 pick.
I'm good either way at this point because I look at it as an opportunity either way, whether you get the top 5 quarterback or whether you build it through the draft and you let this guy that had, was underneath Ozzie Newsome for years in Baltimore, and he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's been around some successful general manager and decision makers. So I believe in him to get his job done and draft the right players. And first, second, third, fourth, fifth, doesn't matter. I believe he can find talent and execute that draft pick.
Yeah. So if we don't land Watson,
right?
We stick with Sam. You got to build around now. Now it's just all about building around Sam and seeing what he has to offer for year 4. And everybody was speaking like, let's see what Sam Darnold could do outside of the Jets in a new system, a different head coach. Well, technically now he's kind of got that, but instead of going to a new team, it's the same team, just new head coach and new system. So, he's cutting. What would we signed the offensive coordinator from San Francisco also, right?
Yeah, he brought over Mike LaFleur, which is Matt LaFleur, the head coach of the Green Bay Packers.
So he's going to basically running a similar offense to the San Francisco 49ers.
Correct, which could be very beneficial to Sam Darnold in resurrecting his career with that West Coast.
So that that's probably what's going through their heads right now. That could be the only thing.
It's right now. It is probably going on behind closed door. Robert Saleh and Mike LaFleur are discussing, and Joe Douglas are like, can this guy be fixed? Adam Gase did a number on him. Todd Bowles, he didn't know what he was doing.
And I get it. You invested in the number 3 pick.
He did. I mean, he didn't, but the team did invest in top 3 overall pick. And if you want to include the assets they gave up for that, the 3 2s that Mike McCagnon gave up to the Colts just to trade up to that pick. So they gave up a lot of assets. And the kid is still young. He's 6 months younger than Joe Burrow. So that conversation has probably already been discussed. And ultimately, it'll come down to a tough decision by the coach and management.
Yeah, man. I think I'm not going to – I mean, would I be a little disappointed that we don't land Watson? Yeah. But,
no doubt.
If they stick with Darnold, it's all about driving a wideout or signing a wideout. Like, they have to – I'd have to be comfortable. I'm not going to be comfortable knowing that if we don't have a playmaker for Sam Darnold, that next season is just not going to be the same.
No, it's not. It's not.
So I mean, what everybody doesn't see, you see the Jets, so if they don't trade number 2, they're going to draft like Jamar Chase or Devonta Smith at number 2.
That's very high to trade for a receiver. I mean, you look at Justin Jefferson, who was taken in the 20s last year by the Vikings, and he set some rookie records and stuff like that. I think drafting a receiver that high is dangerous. I mean, you want to look at the 2011 draft when AJ Green was taken, and then shortly thereafter, Julio Jones, the Falcons traded up and took him. And Julio Jones, I think, was drafted like in the early teens or, right after 10. So, and he's
Julio Jones, I think, was a 6th overall pick or something like that.
Are you sure about that? So when was AJ Green drafted? Well, we'll look that up. But either way, those two receivers weren't drafted that high. They weren't selected second.
No, they weren't. No, the last time. Damn, when was the last? All right. So I'm looking at the 2012 draft. Justin Blackman, fifth overall.
Yuck.
Jaguars.
Awful pick.
So
But that's
just
the
top
Jaguars.
10.
So. You know what? Let's towel off real quick. We're gonna look up that information and then we'll be right back.
Sounds good. And we're back with Big Apple Banter. So we're gonna get into some wide receivers that were drafted like within the last 10 years, that were drafted like within the top 10, or even specifically within like the top 5. So going back to 2010, there wasn't any quarterbacks, wide receivers drafted in the top 10 in that year. But going into the next year's draft in 2011, had AJ Green and Julio Jones both in the top 6. Green went 4.
Both those guys were great.
Went 6. Yeah, exactly.
They were both great. I mean, AJ Green, most of his career, he had Andy Dalton throwing him the football, and Julio Jones had Matt Ryan, who was drafted, second overall in the 2008 draft class behind Jake Long, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
So those are two decent quarterbacks. But
then the following year, you have Justin Blackman in Jacksonville.
Awful. Yeah.
Yeah, those two guys. I mean, those two guys have turned out to have pretty decent careers, really good careers.
I mean, we just looked at those first 10 picks in that draft. If anyone else wants to go check that out, there was a lot of good, talented, top of the league type of players in that draft. So that 2011 was a good draft class.
2013, the Rams drafted Tavon Austin 8th.
Awful. Way overdrafted. He's a glorified slot receiver and punt returner.
Guess who was drafted number 27?
In 2013?
DeAndre Hopkins. So it just goes to show that, even, wasting that, pick on a wide receiver that high, you don't need it. Because even start this year, Philly drafted Jalen Reagor, Minnesota drafted Justin Jefferson. So it's all about, like, your talent evaluators. So if the Jets do decide to draft, like, a wide receiver too, they better make sure they get the damn right guy.
They have to. Dude, you cannot mess up a second overall pick. You know how badly that'll set back your team and your franchise. Second round pick has to be a slam dunk pick. It cannot be ifs, ands, or buts. It needs to be the perfect pick.
In 2014, Sammy Watkins was taken 4th. Mike Evans was taken 7th. So now, Mike Evans had James Winston. Sammy Watkins didn't really have.
No, he was drafted to Buffalo, and they traded up, I believe, to get Sammy Watkins.
They did.
And they gave up a haul for that guy. And you know what? You looked at that time, you looked like he was a supremely talented receiver. But, yeah, he had no one throwing the ball. I mean, was that when Ryan Fitzpatrick was still on the Bills?
Probably.
Or EJ Winston, is that, or EJ Manuel?
EJ Manuel.
Yeah. So those are nothing to write home about. Those players weren't very good. So you know what? He ended up going to Kansas City.
Odell was taken 12th.
Very good pick. Although he can't get on the field now for the Browns. It caused a lot of problems with the Giants.
Amari Cooper was taken in 2015, and he was taken 4th overall.
The Raiders. Yeah, he's a solid receiver, no doubt. I think he's a little bit overrated. But he's definitely a solid receiver. I wouldn't say he's a bust at all.
Devontae Parker was taken 14th.
You know what? He looked like a bust when Adam Gase was there. Once he was freed from Adam Gase and Ryan Tannehill, he's been looking like a solid receiver, no doubt.
And Brashad Perriman, who's on the Jets, was taken 26th by the Ravens.
That's a bust. Big time bust. That guy couldn't stay on the field. He had injury woes. Yeah, right. He ended up on the Jets in a hurry. No second contract after that rookie deal. So there you go. There's some big hits, and there's Brashad Perriman. That's a big loss. Tavon Austin loss. You can even say Sammy Watkins was a loss because he didn't succeed on the team he was drafted to. And
Yeah,
that
no,
was
no,
third
exactly.
overall.
Yeah, exactly. I would consider that a not a successful pick, not
And
at all.
would you say coming out of college? I mean, up until the the playoff games, I'd never really heard Devonta Freeman's or Smith's name per se. But Sammy Watkins, would you say Watkins when he's coming out of college was a more talented receiver than Smith?
Probably, which is Devonta Smith just had one hell of a year.
Yeah, and he's a small guy. He's about barely 6 foot tall, and he's weighs under 200 pounds. He's very small. I mean, that sounds to me like another slot guy. Slot guys are a dime a dozen in the NFL.
Yeah, you might not want to take a guy like that with the number 2 pick, and as talented he is, and the season that he came off of, it's kind of like false advertising almost in a way. He has all this hype built up, and just for the Jets to go all in number 2 with that guy, it probably doesn't make sense.
No.
If they're gonna stick with number 2, you're probably better. Even though you're gonna have to pay him, you're better off drafting an offensive lineman because you're better off stacking that O line.
All right, you need to take a premier position that you can't find for the mid rounds. So what would that might be? That might be offensive line, like you said, right? Maybe a pass rusher. Those are hard to find. I mean, those are probably, and then a quarterback, obviously, if you want to go that route. But those 3 positions right there are the 3 key positions to building a successful football team. Wide receivers we can find anywhere.
And who was the Jets quarterback in? I can't even think of this right now. And when we picked Jamal Adams,
Josh McCown.
and we don't draft Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes.
No, because I guess McCagnon. Oh, that's right. This was the year after they decided to take Christian Hackenberg in the 2nd round, and they thought he was the future, yet he never threw one pass in an NFL game for the New York Jets, and then ended up going to the AFL and failed there. So that was a horrific pick by Mike McCagnon, and that's one of the many reasons why he's no longer the GM. But that reasoning right there was why they didn't take Mahomes or Watson or even Trubisky would have been a better pick than sticking with Hackenberg.
Dude, like that's just like I was looking at that draft the other day. I was just because I always look at past drafts. It just amazes me what you'll see when you look back at past drafts. And now that you're telling me Josh McCown was our quarterback, even because I'm just thinking after Sanchez, it's been a lost cause trying to find a quarterback. So
it was Sanchez, then Geno Smith, then Fitzpatrick,
dude,
then McCown. Then
you take Geno Smith in the 2nd round. You take Christian Hackenberg in the 2nd round. I know. Listen to me. I know. I've been saying also. I'd rather draft a quarterback in the 2nd round, and if he fails, he fails. But dude, you're passing. I know nobody thought of Mahomes as what Patrick Mahomes was going to be, but you passed on Deshaun Watson,
who was very successful in college and took down one of the best coaches ever in Alabama.
Yeah, and there was a lot of people didn't really believe in Watson, but he took down an Alabama defense, which is probably the next closest thing to an NFL caliber defense.
Yeah, I think one of the big knocks against him was he had skinny legs. He had chicken legs, so they figured he was too weak to be stand in there on an NFL level.
What? And that's why he's fired. McCagnon, Jesus. Oh my God! This is just. It's crazy. It really is mind blowing how, so many teams mess up picks like this.
They outsmart themselves.
It also goes back to scouting though, because there's a whole grade on what scouting is used, probably a 0 to 100 or whatever the grade is. I'm going to use 0 to 100 just for this case, right? So let's say coming out of the draft, Elway, Luck, and Lawrence have been the 99s, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now coming out, they're doing scouting. What was Trubisky? A freaking 90, 95, and then what's Watson? An 80, an 85, and then Mahomes. I just don't understand. And then, so you mean to tell me that these guys are 90s, right? So once you have a number associated, once you have a ranking associated with a player, then I'm gonna look back at the next year's draft. So I'm coming up. So now you have Lawrence at 99. So now if Lawrence looks awful, doesn't look anything like a Luck or an Elway, then who the hell, like, those guys making those rankings are just they're not doing their job, or they you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're a bunch of people that study analytics. They got a degree from MIT or whatever you want to say, and they never played a down of football in their life. But they look at numbers on the screen. They judge their tangibles. They judge the wingspan, speed, arm strength, stuff like that, and they try to put that all together and say, oh, this guy is rated this number, this. But they don't use the eye test and look at how the guy plays on the field, like the way Watson played at Clemson.
Dude, it's just yeah, nobody. I feel like I don't know who I don't know. I don't follow college football, but Mitch Trubisky. It's kind of like taking Zach Wilson this year.
Exactly. Exactly. He's in an inferior conference, and the guy played one freaking season in college.
So
You know
you're
who
gonna
else
is that
played one freaking season? Sanchez played one season at USC. They thought he was too premature. His own coach said that to come out, Pete Carroll. And look, he failed in the NFL. He flopped.
yeah. This is what I would never USC quarterbacks. I'm never gonna want the Jets to take ever again. No offense to Sam Darnold. You
Yeah,
know,
Matt Leinart, Mark Sanchez, Matt Barkley, Sam Darnold. None of these guys amounted to anything. And
no.
Sam, I know it's too premature, but so far he hasn't shown that he belongs to stay, at least.
And even if they do put him in this new system, when it's probably gonna be like just like a short pass, screen pass kind of system in slants, that you don't need that's no talent at the quarterback position. You could teach anybody to do that. You what you need him to do is make a deep ball. That's where and like in the mental decision, so you don't have mental lapse. Like even Josh Allen, like Josh Allen cannot keep going back 10 yards or 20 yards and take a sack. That's something he has to work on. And there's always going to be like those things. There's just those mental errors that you're going to have to work on.
You want to look at the quarterbacks, Kyle Shanahan, which Mike LaFleur comes from that system. He coached Matt Ryan. Would you say Sam Darnold's inferior when it comes to talent to Matt Ryan? Probably not. They might be on level playing field. Would you say Jimmy G is supremely talented to Sam Darnold? Probably not. He was a second round pick. So maybe that is the thought process on why they're saying, you know what, we don't need to trade for Watson, because this offense is so simplistic that I can put Sam Darnold in that system and he will thrive.
Yeah, man. It's funny because I'm just thinking about it in my head. So the Jets, because I say don't take use a top 10 pick on a quarterback,
Right.
But at the end of the day, I guess it's safer because this is what I'm saying. So I was trying to get with quarterbacks and scouting. Like, so look, Christian Ponder, Blaine Gabbert, Jake Locker, all taken 8, 10, and 12. So if they had the talent to be taken at 8, 10, and 12, Deshaun Watson was taking 12, Mahomes was taking 10. So you're telling me their scouting was about the same? Like that just doesn't make sense to me. And you could go on previous drafts. So Winston and Mariota, both taking 1 and 2. Where are they? New teams. Jared Goff and Wentz, 1 and 2. Where are they at? Mega contracts and their teams don't even want them. And Jared Goff
One of them
got
is
traded.
gone. Yeah.
So, Trubisky now, Sam Darnold and the Jets, and just all these question marks and with quarterbacks, and you're using premium draft picks, high draft picks to draft them. It's just you got to get them right. But then when the Jets go and use the second round draft pick, they draft Hackenberg, they draft Smith. They can't draft Kirk Cousins or Dak Prescott or Russell Wilson.
That's why I've made this argument. It has less to do with who you take and more of where he's going to. What team he's going to, the foundation, the coaching, the system, the talent around them. That matters more than the player itself. I'll believe that. That's all I've been led to believe, because all these players are all talented. No one's that supremely talented than the other. They're all in a similar playing field. It has to do with where you go.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Getting that fit and where you get drafted, that definitely matters. You can't just like like even Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. Like, you really think that's gonna work out?
I don't. I mean, yeah, he has Urban Meyer. He's a good coach, and at least in college, he's never taken it to this level in the NFL. So that still remains to be seen.
The coach is one thing, but again, like this is you and I could go back to the Brady Belichick thing. You and I basically said Brady necessarily didn't really need Bill, the whole time probably.
Right.
So, it's kind of like Lawrence and Urban. Is he really going to need Urban Meyer? He's the one throwing the ball. He's the one making the decisions. He's not listening to Urban Meyer in the helmet. Throw to wide receiver A. Throw to the slot. Throw the ball away. He's not. That's not happening.
No. So you know what? If he's that great, if Lawrence is truly that otherworldly, he should find a way. Even if there's no talent, bad coach, he should shine through because talent should shine through no matter what.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So, but people that are doing these scouting reports, I don't know how some of these guys don't lose their jobs when teams are taking, Tim Tebow, Johnny Manziel, Christian Ponder, Jake Locker, Blaine Gabbert, all these guys that have just been wasted away, turned into bust. Even I always forget him, and he's in their draft. Josh Rosen. Everybody forgets about Josh Rosen.
He is forgetful because he doesn't play anywhere.
But that was probably one of the best things Arizona realized. They realized that Josh Rosen was a mistake, and that's the thing. Like, you wasted a 10th overall pick now, so that's a pick it's just gone. You could have used that on somebody else.
You could have used it on someone else to help Kyler Murray, who they drafted the following year. But they kind of rectified that by trading for Hopkins. So.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's just these teams that just throw countless draft picks away and away and away, and
no one knows what they're doing. It's a crapshoot.
Exactly.
That's it.
And that's why you trade the picks for a commodity like Deshaun.
Bingo.
So what? Argument settled. Have a good night, Chris. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. Subscribe, like the videos. There's more to come. If you have anything to say, email us at BigApple Banter 9495 @gmail.com. Catch you later, dude. Have a good night.